Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss Hocus Pocus 2. This is a Disney Plus original film. It's been 29 years. 1993, we had a Hocus Pocus directed by Kenny Ortega. Now we have Hocus Pocus 2 of 2022. Honestly, they should have waited another year. They should have just had it in 23. It's more menacing. It's more ethereal. It's more conquering 30 years later. Because when you say 29 years later, it's too many syllables, bro. It's just not as effective as 30, right? So, aside from that, this is an hour, 40-something long minutes. The first 10, 12 minutes is... I've seen this movie twice, by the way. It only came out yesterday. No, excuse me. I've seen this 3 times already. It came out yesterday. I saw it yesterday before work, this morning as soon as I woke up, and then this evening with my folks. So I've seen it 3 times in the, 2 days it's been out. So first 12-ish minutes, it's a prequel of the Sanderson sisters. We have Winnie, we have Mary, we have Sarah. It's Salem 1653. And Winnie is promised to this other guy in town because she's now turning 16, so she's old, and she's now a woman, so she has to marry. But she likes Billy, but Billy likes Sarah. It's a whole thing, right? Scandal. So the Reverend Trask forces her to make the decision. Otherwise, they have to get out of Salem because their father has passed away. So the 3 of them run to the woods after there's a spider incident with Reverend Trask. A witch comes... discusses with them about witchcraft and gives them the book. And so in the first movie, get the little backstory that the book was given to Book himself was given to Winnie by the devil himself, right? Now, it's not a thing in the backstory, but in hindsight, we all know that William Butcherson is Winifred's lost love, right? Winifred's lover that she cursed and stuff, right? But in actuality, he only kissed Winifred once in a graveyard, as per the literal dialogue. And so he was actually Sarah's lover, not Winifred's lover. So the story was skewed over time, right? So it's possible that the story was skewed over time in regards to the Devil's Book, just being passed from that witch who lost her coven to Winifred and her new coven, her sisters. This movie's about sisterhood. So to have the... flash forward then to present day, there's not an actual 2022 moniker, there's not a 2021 moniker, there's not a 2023 moniker, it just says present day, right? Everybody has their iPhones, there's modern songs playing. The witches are back because there's these 2 girls and then 3 girls later who are given a black flame candle by this Gilbert the Great, who now runs a magic shop in the Sandersons' cottage, which is now actually incorporated into a main street. That woods was turned into a main street. The Sanderson College is now a magic shop on that main street for this town in Salem. For this part of Salem. There we go. The high school that the kids are all at. Froya Gutierrez is in this as well. He plays this dumb kid, Mike. Very great character development. We know and love Froy from Teen Wolf. So it's nice seeing him play a teen again all these years later. But he plays a teen very well. I give Froy credit. But the high school they go to is not Jacob Bailey High School. So that tells me that there's different high schools within the city of Salem, which is possible. Most major metropolitan cities have more than one high school because there's so many people. So it's a thing. So these girls, they have their tiffs and their fights. And one of the main girl, Becca, is actually a witch. And she's discovering her powers along the way. So they inadvertently summon the witches back by lighting a black flame candle that Gilbert tricks them into lighting because he can't, because he's not a virgin and they are. So then it was a whole hysterical dialogue. The witches come back. They're singing The Witches Back in the tune of The Bitches Back, the song from Elton John. Absolutely incredible. There's chaos and they're running amok, and our 3 beautiful witches are there. Kathleen Najami, Sarah Jessica Parker, and our one and only Bette Midler. They're all playing their parts so beautifully, and it's like they never left the characters, and it's so cool seeing that almost 3 decades later. It's so neat having them interact then in 2022 time period. Having Alexa being a woman trapped in a box. Roombas being Mary's new, broomies that she calls to fly upon. Sarah using it's the mop. You spritz the floor and it Swiffer Wet Jet. There we go. It's very entertaining watching all these modern interactions come into play. Them going into a Walgreens thinking it's an apothecary, getting their potions, quote unquote, and it just so many fun interactions. But entrancing the crowd of Salem yet again at another festival, at another party. Very cool. Throwback lines, throwbacks to the original. Oh, we've been tricked by teenagers once before. Calling a black cat Thackeray Binks, you know, even though Thackeray is no longer a thing, but the black cat now, his name's Cobweb, and he's Gilbert's cat. What else? Just so many fun little throwbacks, saying that the last time they were at the cottage, they were the boys in the cages, referencing Jay and Ice. So many different things, and then transferring from, let's not make a life potion anymore, let's just do the Magica Malachi, which is that, you know, all-powerful spell to get all the power, so we can just live and never have to worry about the sun and suck the lives out of the children ever again. No more of that. We're beyond that. So after many things and many reconciliations of the kids and facing the witches and figuring out what to do, because the witches now want to defeat Trask and his Mayor Trask and his daughter, who's friends with Becca, because they should have done it years ago, but they couldn't have because they were too weak back then to destroy the bloodline. But now they can destroy the bloodline, so they want to destroy the bloodline. Let's get all the magical power. There we go. More musical numbers galore, flash mob sequences, the whole hilarity with caramel apples. It's just it's so well done. And at the end of Sisterhood, that Magica Malachi was cast, and Winifred has all the power now. But the warning is that, and Book chooses, you know, his Book has opinions, not wanting to do it, but then he does it and makes Winnie realize the cost that she has to lose with what she values most, and that's her sisters. And there's a whole breakdown. There's a breakdown figuring out what to do next. And then Winnie just changing everything, saying, I am nothing without my sisters. You need to help me, you brand new witches. You need to help me. Please, I need my sisters. And then having the curse reverse in a sense of not have them come back, but have Winnie go with them. And then there's a post-credit scene of, you know, another black flame candle being hidden in a box in the magic shop. But it's so cool seeing the character development of these three witches that were on a murdering spree the last time we saw them. And then they were defeated by teenagers in a graveyard with Billy Butcherson, of course. Having Billy Butcherson back work alongside Gilbert, hysterical. Doug Jones, playing the part of Billy yet again. So cool. I wish Kenny Ortega was a part of this again, because he directed the first film, but I can't remember the name of the director of this film, but she did an incredible job. They did an incredible job. I really like the pacing of this. I love the story of this. I have to say, though, a lot of people that complain about this don't realize the magnitude of the first one, because this was transcended within the queer community. This has been a staple within drag performers for quite some time. This has been a staple within costumes for quite some time, within the cisgendered male crowd, drag crowd. To have a token gay couple watching the original film while the witches are looking for the mayor, hysterical, very meta as well, but it's very important in the culture. And a lot of people who love the movie and the costuming and the soundtrack and the lines, rightfully so, right? That's their childhood, that's their nostalgia. This movie was made for us, but it was also made for the newer crowd as well. The thing, though, that a lot of people don't realize is there was a book that came out 2018, 2019, which is Hocus Pocus and the brand new sequel. And it was a retelling novelization that was Disney approved of the first film and the sequel, which was awful. It was awful. I raved about it for like 18 minutes, I believe. We did a long, in-depth review about why it was so terrible and the writing was just so god-awful. But in hindsight, all these years later, now that we've seen the sequel, the official sequel, that has nothing to do with the written sequel, I like that the book's sequel had the characters of Max, Danny, Allison, and Jay back. Jay being the principal now of Jacob Bailey High School. Max being one of the teachers there. Allison doing a law firm stuff. Danny, I forgot what Danny does. Is she an artist? Something, right? But like having all of them as adult form now, and the reason that they were sent to hell and the witches were brought back was because of a soul transference spell. I like that, again, comparing it now to, for this movie to that horrible sequel, I like that the main characters from the first one were incorporated into this book sequel. I hated the main storyline of their daughter and their friends and the stupidity that ensued, but the Moonstone plot point was, I hate to say it, interesting now compared to when I first read it because it made no sense. But if there was more of a backstory to it, I think it would have been fine. I liked that there was a fourth Sanderson sister, that their mother was the real witch. I liked that little backstory. I wish that was incorporated slightly, I can't stress that enough, slightly into what this was. But I liked how quick of a backstory we actually got. So, like, they don't actually talk about their mother in this backstory in the very, like, first 10, 12 minutes of this film, the 2022 film. They don't mention another sister. So, because we see another Black Flame candle at the end, who knows? There might be another Hocus Pocus 3. There might be just a prequel of the witches doing their stuff. Maybe the third Hocus Pocus film will be actually about the Bloodstone and the Blood Moon and the fourth sister who is the good sister, quote unquote, and the mother who is really the, you know, head witch kind of a thing. Who knows? It's possible. But the story that was presented to us in that novel was awful. It was horrible. It was horribly written. I could not stand it. It was just drove me crazy, droning on and on about why the sky's blue and why the grass is green. I can't stand. There's nothing wrong with having things written that way, to each their own. But when you're trying to move a story along, it should not take me 400 pages to get from point A to point D when B and C just went all the way through all the different loops of a roller coaster. That is irrelevant, and it should not have happened. I like that the main characters from the first film were incorporated into the book sequel. I wish the main characters of the first film were incorporated into the movie sequel, but the story that we were presented is a modern Salem with different characters in Salem. So just because Max and Danny and Allison and whoever else was a part of the first film might still potentially live in Salem doesn't mean the sequel has to be about them also in Salem. So I think it's neat, another perspective of another Salemite. I think it's Salemite. Salemite. I think it's a Salemite. Like I'm a New Yorker or a Long Islander. I think it's Salemite. Someone correct me, because I actually don't know, but that sounds like it's correct. Salemite. I don't know. Anywho, yeah. So the point of my rant on the book was that it's very different compared to this film. This film has amazing, amazing scenes, amazing heart, amazing story. I just wish there was some of the original cast put into this. But that's just me wishing for nostalgia. This movie by itself was absolutely wonderful. I watched it 3 times in 2 days. That doesn't normally happen. Incredible. I will watch this 1,000 times more throughout this month in our spooky season. I will watch this out of spooky season. I will watch this continually for as long as I possibly can. And I will watch this continuously even more, especially when a third film comes out. I really want a prequel. I really want a prequel of the girls that we just got again. Learning new spells, practicing transformation, stuff like that. I would love Salem 1653, Salem 1654, Salem 1655 with these girls, the Sanderson sisters learning their witchcraft. Oh, that would be magical. Absolutely wonderful. Because they are doing their thing for, what, 40 years? By the time that they're hung? Yeah, because they're hung in 1693. Yeah, so 40 years later, they're 50-something-ish, give or take, by the time that they're actually hung. And then they come back in 93, and then they come back again in 2022. So I would love another prequel. I would love a full movie prequel. They could do so many films about this. They could do prequel, they could do sequel. There was a coven mentioned in Paris. They could do a whole thing on that. The amount of story within this is endless, and that's what's cool about it. This was a very thrown away film from 93 that barely did anything at the box office and got horribly bombed with reviews, and yet it became a cult classic. And that's what normally happens. And then here we are all these years later. It's so cool living in a legendary time of nostalgia, both past and present. Seeing the new generation love this as much as we loved this back then. It's cool. It's like a passing of the torch kind of thing. So yes, Book sequel, garbage compared to this movie sequel. Movie sequel was awesome compared to the book sequel, and you have to appreciate that more. But again, certain aspects of the book sequel I would have loved to incorporate within the movie sequel. C'est la vie, to each their own, such is life. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.